Today I'd like to approach a sensitive topic, something that needs to be discussed though. Through the scrollings on the internet, particularly Facebook and such forums as that, I'm injured. By the way, side tangent, I took one of the worst injuries that I've ever had. You know what, this video, I really want to keep it on topic, but let's just say that my old man powers are getting strong. I had a slip and fall. It wasn't this step, but it was similar. It was a single step down. It was inside my home. I was in my socks, slipped and landed square on my back onto the step. Very painful. Been moving very slow for the last week, but I am healing. I don't think the damage is permanent. I don't think I actually cracked any bone. It may come up later. They may x-ray me in a decade and say, "Did you ever break your pelvis?" No, I'll know. Now you might have noticed in my videos, I don't go out and do the huge acro maneuvers that you see and all the flashy look at me type content available on the internet. Even though I am capable of it and that I do it on a regular basis, there are people getting smashed into the ground. And I know that, you know, the data that I'm seeing just from an internet forum is probably, there's probably a lot of stuff that people aren't showing, like if they go down hard. But if it's at a fly-in, you know, at the Salton Sea fly-in, I did not go this year. One, I was injured. I almost got in the truck and left. And two, I'm doing a custom build for a client this month. I'm building a trike out there in the shop, and I've been working on that in the daytime hours. And I didn't want to have to rush on that as soon as I got back from travels. And so I've not been traveling. With that aside, I have seen what has happened on the internet. Let's see, Dimitri had a reserve toss flying in thermic conditions. That's not out of bounds. That's what they're for. I can't really knock him for that. Dimitri's a seasoned pilot, been flying for many years, such as myself. But this goes back to a thing of progression. Kevin can fly. Had to do a reserve toss on I think it was maybe a botched barrel roll, botched barrel roll. It was pretty low. He got it out, survived. And then there was Chris Altemeyer. I did not see a video of that occurrence. That may be published sometime after the filming of this. I've not witnessed it, but there were people talking about, again, low maneuvering close to the ground, ended up with ground contact. I think he broke a femur, possibly something else. I've not heard the whole story on it yet. My thoughts are with you, Chris, and with the other two guys. Even though you guys came out unscathed with just maybe some bent equipment, you know, psychologically, you can have a fear injury that could be sustained from an event like that. Although I hope that's not the case. What I do hope that this video does more than anything is to teach the people that are coming up. Now let's take a walk in the past with me. Now I can only talk about my personal progression, and you know, that's my experience with the sport, is what I've experienced so far in my doings of it. It started from airplanes. I don't know what I would be what you would call a seasoned general aviation pilot when I started, but I had more than 400 hours in probably 10 or 12 different kinds of aircraft. From 6-seat high performance, I got my check off on high performance, down to just lightweight Cub, J3 Cub, hand prop, walkie-talkie for the radio, which is what led me to paramotoring. Now, in my quest of aviation, I started out in just, I didn't even know what paramotors were when I became a pilot. With a little Piper, a PA-28, it's just your typical old Piper Cherokee. That was my first taste of controlling an aircraft, right? That led to other planes. They became bigger, they became more powerful, they became more expensive. At that point, I was a pharmacist working on a pharmacist budget. I'd gotten to a point where a lot of the bills were paid. I was still in some debt at that point, and aviation, I can only budget so much time and money to aviation. Although it was a priority on my list, I had other priorities as well. Well, what that ultimately turned into was the slower and smaller the aircraft became, the more happy that I was with it. Now, bear with me, this is gonna come full circle into paramotors, but you got to know the history for the story to make sense to you. So I find paramotors, and when I found paramotors, that really opened my sense of aviation to the, you know, it gave me so many more options to aviate. So many more options to do what I love to do. It's cheaper. I could do it from the house. I didn't have to have the overhead of a hangar or a flying club or you know, the things that really kind of make it feasible to fly aircraft. I didn't have to have any of that stuff. And so the number of days that I could fly just exponentially progressed. And what really drew me to the sport was the fact that I could fly slow and low. And I could have a bailout as small as a little soccer field or someone's backyard, the side of a road. I mean, as long as there was no obstructions, you could put these things down anywhere. It just really blew my mind how many more options, safe options, came to be since I picked up paramotoring. Now let's talk about paramotoring progression, okay? So personally, I started on an A glider, an ENA glider, and it wasn't just a couple of 3 months after I started paramotoring that I started paragliding. So I had a wing that was dual purpose. Really? What is an acorn? He's eating an acorn. Stupid. Last time I ate acorns, he got sick. But I started on an A-wing, and you know, this is a caveat. The first thing that I wanted to be good at, and the first thing that you should try to be good at, is motor off landings. You know, powered paragliding is not gonna be as safe for you until you are paragliding. So practice your motor out, engine out. You know, just do it at idle. You don't have to kill the engine necessarily, but do motor idle approaches. Those are the best things you could do. Do 5 or 10 of them every flight that you take for the first 6 months that you fly. And that's if you fly every day. If you only fly on the weekends, do them for 2 years. Be good at it. Be good at it. That's the one thing that'll get you out of more binds than any other skill that I can think of. You know, it's worth saying it a time or two. Be good at your motor off approaches. Who cares how good you land? If you can't approach the field with precision, whether you land good or bad doesn't matter. But if you can approach that field with precision, you're gonna have a good or a bad landing in a good spot, and you won't have any sort of calamity to come from that activity. So think about that. Now, progression. Let's get into the meat of the subject here. We're talking about aviation, things that you do in the air. What I see a lot of is people aviating way the fuck too low. They're aviating in the danger zone. The danger zone is what I refer to as that level of your atmosphere somewhere in the realm of, you know, 5 feet off the ground up to about 40 or 50 feet. You know, these aren't hard lines in the sand. There's a gray area. You could just as well get killed at 2 feet off the ground as you can at 100 feet off the ground. But if you're in that sort of 50 feet down to 5 feet sort of zone, you are in a very precarious situation that does not allow for very much margin. If you have a collapse, you may not recover before you contact the ground, and you might contact the ground very hard, enough to break legs, bones, spines, necks. I mean, people get killed in this sort of danger zone all the time. First and foremost, just stay the hell away from there. You know, stay away from the danger zone. You know, you have to go through it when you take off, you have to go through it when you land. But if you're stable and steady, it's okay. It's okay to be in the danger zone if you're stable and steady. If you're not, that's not the place to be. If you're trying wingy-doos or wing-overs or showing out for the crowd, ultimately it's gonna end in some sort of ground contact. Typically it's not good from that altitude. That's probably one of the biggest takeaways that I can say, is just stay out of the danger zone. I teach it in my How to Fly Safely class that I do for all students, and it's something that you need to keep in your mind. If you find yourself below 50 feet, you need to shape up, get focused, be on the controls, be stable, be fast. Do not be slow in the danger zone. Do not be unstable in the danger zone. I don't care how good you are, how good you think you are. That's not the place to be for anyone. We have to be there sometimes though. So treat it right. Treat it right. And oh, there's so many tangents and so many topics that I could go into regarding just that. But I don't want to. I want to talk about my progression and what that meant as far as being a pilot, being an aviator. So let's go through the first year. The first year for Kylo, I started paramotoring. I mastered my motor off approaches to landing. My landings were always pretty good. I was always a pretty good lander, although that's not a necessary thing. You will get good with time. The more you do landings, the better you'll get at them. If you're suffering, just continue to train. That's the thing to do. I was foot launching. I hadn't done wheels yet. But the first year was just about me mastering the fundamentals. I really wanted to master the fundamentals. I took my first SIV course, probably, let's see, it was April. Started in October. Okay, so 6 months in, I took my first SIV clinic. And that was strictly because I was gonna fly thermal air. I wanted to be a mountain pilot. I wanted to fly in thermals. I wanted to do free flight, cross-country paragliding. SIV is just a standard if you're gonna do that kind of activity. And I wanted to reach for that. And I did. I've done it regularly over the years. My second year, I stepped up gliders. I stepped up to a B-wing. I did my second SIV. I continued to do my free flight at the mountains. I continued to do my motors every day, morning, noon, and night. I was motoring before work, at lunch break, after work, on days that were acceptable. I also quit counting flights my second year. I had somewhere in the neighborhood of 700 and something whenever I just stopped counting. I lost count and I just said, who cares? Who cares about how many flights you have? It's not about the numbers. It's not about if I can be I don't see the relevance of it. I don't see the relevance of how many flights I've had or how long I've flown. I keep clocks on the motors. I think it's relevant to know how much time is on your motors. Just for maintenance issues or when things break, it'll give you an idea about how long that thing lasted. But ultimately, I don't care about numbers. I'm not concerned with it. But my second year, I may have been. I purchased my second paramotor. I got a Nitro 200. I think it was my second year. I purchased my Nitro 200. That was my second paramotor. I also started dabbling in acro my second year. I learned to do sats, wing overs, barrel rolls. It was well within my second year when I started that. And it was a slow progression. It was very important to me that I progressed very slowly into aerobatic activities with paragliding. You know, I would study the maneuvers, I would practice them at SIV setting, and then I would take those skills out into the wild, go very high up, and practice those maneuvers high up. Third year, I started experimenting with spicier wings. I got my first full reflex glider, my first advanced wing. It was an original Hadron. Man, nice wing. I demoed a lot of wings. My third year, I ended up on a Hadron 22. That was my go-to. I flew that wing for so long. I still got it. I probably need to change the lines out on it, but the wing is still in there. I still own it. Boy, it earned me a lot of hours. I don't know how many because I quit keeping up, but it did earn me a lot of hours. And it taught me a lot about flying aggressively, high speed, high energy maneuvers. Those are the maneuvers that you probably are gonna go to first when you're progressing into sort of your acro type stuff. I promise this story has an end, y'all. I promise it does. So let's go into my fourth year, my fifth year. I started teaching. I started instructing paramotors. And what that did is that reintroduced beginner style wings into my life. The Bodie, slow, and what had not occurred to me, as I had progressed into the spicier and smaller wings, the more agile, more maneuverable gliders, full reflex, small sizes, Hadron XX type stuff, demo and snakes, Niviuk Dobermans, you know, all these kind of gliders that were just spicy tacos, you know, that fast, furious, racing type gliders. You know, I became sort of enthralled with that and doing the tricks very easily. You know, you pull 6 inches of brake and do a barrel roll. That kind of stuff it has its own place. It has its place. But then I started getting students and all of a sudden there were these beginner wings laying around, the slow, very easy, very forgiving for maneuvers, you know, kind of hard to do wing overs with. But what happened is it reignited sort of my passion for slow flying, very docile maneuvering that you get with these paramotors. What brought me to the sport in the first place. That's sort of where I came full circle. Not that the circle ever quits. You just keep going round and round with it. But you know, I went from beginner, slow, safe. I mean, I've always thought of myself as being safe. You take risk. There's different risks that you take, but again, I try to mitigate them appropriately. Over the years, what I found is the most risky thing you can do is just fuck around near the ground. You know, if you fuck around near the ground, you're gonna hit the ground. I've hit it several times on occasion. Now, I didn't talk about sort of incidents. I cracked my first prop a couple of months in. I slip and fall. Wind was switching around. Didn't catch it. Learned something. Second time I busted one, I hit a terrace, flying low. I was foot dragging, fucked it, hit the terrace. That was a couple years in, busted a prop there. Oh, I forgot about one. 18th flight, my kick strap went through the propeller, broke off. The old Fresh Breeze, it had a kick strap. You had to get in the seat with your feet. And so I kicked that strap, it broke, went into the propeller, shredded the whole machine, just totally took out the machine. That was a kick in the wallet. still cheaper than general aviation, but it's kicking the wallet nonetheless. These are kind of some of the mishaps that I've had. God, there's just countless engine outs. Never trust your engine. That's why I wanted to be good at motor off approaches, because I knew that motor was going to be cutting out at some point. One of my first ones, I landed right out here in the yard, looking right out there like, damn, I actually had wires melted. There was no way it would have restarted, even if I had been able to on that old Fresh Breeze. Yeah, they're not as bulletproof as old Captain Dude will have you think. But fast forward, 6-7 years into it, and then I had my first prop contact, busted my pinky. Doing a forward launch out of the yard here, had a line get caught in the hub, didn't realize it. Continued to go for the launch. Arm got pushed back by the risers into the propeller. As I was hitting the kill switch, I was not fast enough to kill it before my pinky finger made contact with the propeller. Dusted that knuckle. It'll always be this crooked from now on. That's probably the worst injury that I've received on a paramotor. And statistically speaking, the number one injury is still body contact with the propeller. Again, shit on the ground is where it goes bad most often. The dirt's what hurts, is what I say. But here I've been teaching paramotors for 4 or 5 years now. How long has it been? At least 4. Been teaching at least 4 years. I barely do pharmacy work anymore. Most of my job description entails of teaching people to fly or getting things for people to fly. Paramotor stuff, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing almost all the time is paramotor stuff. But I was just in there looking at the internet and thinking, there's a lot of people hitting the ground. There's always a lot of people hitting the ground. It's something that happens. It's something that happens with this sport. Even with, take something like motorcycles or boating. People get hurt and killed doing those activities all the time as well. It's a thing. People move around, they get hurt. I got hurt walking through my living room. Almost broke my back. I believe if I had hit that thing square, it would have. I hit it at an angle. I was kind of twisting as I fell, and I landed on my right side and favored it hit the back, it hit the back, but it hit mostly on the side. God, it hurts so bad. I think that's the worst lick I've ever had. Even when I chopped my finger loose, it didn't hurt. It didn't hurt. This one hurt so bad. Had me making funny noises in the floor for about 5 minutes. God, it was bad. Still struggling. I'm still struggling. I've not done a paramotor launch since then. It's been 6 days since I slipped and fell. I feel so elderly. I slipped and fell, hurt myself. These are the things, the older and more brittle you get, the more a lick like that might be a serious, life-ending sort of injury. People slip and fall, break a hip, lay around, get a blood clot, and then have a stroke, a couple weeks later. It's something that happens as part of the medical field. I see these things happen with some regularity. Those are typically people higher in age than me. I'm in my mid-40s, still young compared to someone in their mid-80s. But it is what it is. I'm still a human, still got a body. It still goes crunch when it hits the ground. And yours will too. However invincible or safe you think you are, I want you to take a moment and reassess exactly what that entails. Have you ever caught yourself doing something stupid near the ground? If you say no, you're probably telling a lie. I know I would. If I said I'd never done anything retarded near the ground, I'd be telling a lie. Because I have. I was lucky that I didn't get injured doing things near the ground like that, but when you see people take a lick such as that, it's, one of the Godfathers, Chris Santa Croce, broke his back doing low maneuvers to the ground. And ultimately, as cool as it may look and feel, it's not worth it. I don't think it's worth it. And the older I get, the less risk I'm taking personally as far as doing things near the ground. I want to get up and get away and get out. Also at the Salton, there was a near miss. 2 pilots were looking away, almost hit each other midair right out there over the desert. Scary. And that's one reason that I sort of veer away from going to fly-ins. Not that I don't think I can do it safely. When I'm at a fly-in, I'm literally 360 degree head on a swivel. I'm looking for that to happen. I'm looking to make a mid-air collision with somebody, and I'm looking around so that I can avoid that. But that's something that I'm always looking for. And it's not that I can't do it or don't do it, but it becomes rather taxing to constantly be looking on the guard, on guard all the time is stressful. I don't like to be stressful. I like to go out away and sort of do my own flying in a safer, less crowded environment. Now I like going to fly-ins just for the people, not so much for the flying. I just assume go to a fly-in and not bring a paramotor, just hang out with the folks. That's enjoyable. I fly paramotors almost daily, when we're kicking, almost daily during spring season. Come March 1st through about June 1st, I'm on a paramotor a couple of times a day usually. I'm just around it. That's my life. That's what I do, and it's what has molded into my career. Basically, it's my career is flying paramotors and teaching people to fly paramotors and finding things in the ether about it. You know, what's happening to people? People are hitting the ground and getting hurt. You know, it happened at Glamis last year. A girl and a guy both hit the dunes. Both of them hospitalized. Predator paramotor Chris and a girl. Sorry, I don't have the information, but there were two people that were severely injured maneuvering low to the ground, and so it's something that I want you to take heart with. And these are people that have been flying for years. You know, and I may go out and biff it in tomorrow and break my ass. I don't know. We don't know. I didn't know that I was going to slip down in the living room and break my ass either. As safe as I think that I may be walking, I've been walking for way longer than I've been flying. But sure enough, you know, some socks and some towel and kaplow. And it really, as I laid there healing, you know, for about 3 or 4 days, I could barely get up just to go to the bathroom or get a drink of water. It was severe injury, and I'm still hurting from it. It may not seem like it, but I'm still hurting from it. It made me give it a second thought about what we do. We're flying these things way faster than we're walking through our living room at night. It's scary. It shouldn't turn you away from the sport, though. It really shouldn't turn you away. The sport is amazingly forgiving if approached correctly. I encourage you to continue your progression, but I also want you to take a moment and evaluate exactly what you've been getting away with or what you haven't been getting away with, and just ask yourself, you know, am I making the right decisions? Just because you've done low maneuvering 500 times and never had an incident, you know, it's going to happen. There's this guy down in Alabama. He used to brag about, I've been flying 2 years, never broke a prop, blah, 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 and then broke a prop. Don't ever think you're too good that nothing's going to happen to you, because that's a falsity. That's a falsehood. You're lying to yourself. You're lying to yourself, and it's not going to end well. If you have that kind of mindset going into aviation, you got to treat it for what it is. It's risky, yeah, but you know, if you understand it, you know, I find that if you've got good equipment in good shape and good weather and a good field, and then you don't make any shithead decisions, you know, you're gonna have all the ingredients for a safe, uneventful flight. It's when you go outside of the bounds that those things happen. You start pushing margins too tight that bad things happen. And I don't want bad things to happen to anybody. So walk safely and fly safer, and you know, maybe you'll come full circle too. Maybe you'll come full circle too. I'd like to think that I have, and that I'm not just right up at the top of the Dunning-Kruger effect. You know, I guess I've got 8 years of paramotor experience under my belt now, with many years of those free flight as well. And then, you know, if you count the aviation, I mean, I've been flying airplanes, started 14 years ago. So I've got near a decade and a half, which again, a drop in the bucket for some of you out there, some of you older guys that started when you were younger. You guys are gonna have more experience always if you continue. That's where I'm at, and that's what I've learned from doing that for so many years, are some of these things that I want to share with you. And so I hope you take them to heart, and I hope it means something to you. And I'm sorry this video was just me talking to the camera. If you've made it this far, much appreciated. I got some ideas for some videos coming. Thank you for watching. I'll talk to you real soon in the next one. Much love. Kyle out.